Hi, Mr. Mann.
Hi, I want to apologize. I was having some technical difficulties.
We figured, uh, Ramonia, may I have your phone, please? And Kim, could you cut this off? It's him. It's him. We're still having some problems, Mr. Mann. Can you hear me?
Now I can. I lost you for a couple minutes, or for
Okay.
a couple moments.
All right. Thank you so much. We're just going to dive right into this. I have some colleagues who are around me right now, and they are former
Wonderful.
teachers. The Atlanta Labor Council, I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they might you are. All right, Atlanta
Yep.
Labor Council. Have you been interviewed by them yet?
No, I have not.
Okay. So do you have their phone number?
No, I do not.
All right, can I give it to you right quick?
Yes. How about that?
404
Okay.
525 3559. And ask,
3559.
yes, sir. And
Okay.
ask Sandra Williams.
Okay.
All right. What city are you originally from?
I'm from Atlanta, born and raised.
Woo! We got a lot of folks from Atlanta running this. We see some great candidates.
Yeah,
And where did
I'm
you go
sure.
to school?
Midtown High School is where I graduated from, formerly Grady.
Formerly Grady. Okay, I student taught at Grady. All right, so that's the new name, Midtown.
Yes, ma'am.
Uh-huh. I wonder if they're gonna change the name of Grady Hospital. I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
I
Okay.
don't know. I know a lot of folks like being Grady babies, so I don't know. Might,
Um,
yeah.
yep. Were you a Grady baby?
No, I was not. I forget what hospital, somewhere in the suburbs that my parents took me to. So technically I was born out of the city, but the house I came home to a couple days later was in the city.
Mhm. Okay. What's your profession right now?
I'm a student. So I attend Emory University. I just finished up my first year. Um,
Wow.
yeah, so I study political science. I was honored to be a recipient of the Woodruff MLK Junior Scholarship, which is specifically for Atlanta Public School students. So am attending through that program and am running for the board because it's time that students, in my opinion, actually have a seat at the table when it comes to the stuff that affects us every single day.
And we highly commend you for your courage and your sacrifice. And at Emory University, one of our esteemed institutions, you are a pride. And thank you for being
Thank you.
here. And we want to thank your parents too. Okay, so let's just talk about the board for a minute. What do you want to see changed on the board? And you can just talk about the negatives, some of the negatives, and some of the positives of this Board of Education.
Yeah. I think that we definitely need to see the board doing a much better job with collecting community input and being strategic about it. I think that uh, we have seen, a number of missteps on the part of the district in terms of making decisions where it was clear there was not much community input, and then that creating issues such as, the changed bell schedule this year, where then they went back on a lot of those changes, although I know it's still a bit shifted. And so I think a big thing is just ensuring that whenever a decision is being made, that there is throughout the process, you know, a strong effort to include voices from all nine clusters, parents, educators, students, and other stakeholders. And I think that that's something, unfortunately, that the board, as well as the superintendent, have at times failed to do. I also think that I have tremendous respect for all the individuals on the board, and I have very positive relationships with most of them, with Jason, with Leslie, with Cynthia, but I it really disappoints me, sort of the lack of, I don't know, just political will to be bold and to get past like the minutiae, I guess.
Mhm.
And so those are a couple things. When it comes to specifics, there are a number of things I would like to see changed in terms of how the board does business. For example, as a student, it I was always um, I was always sad that I couldn't attend board committee meetings because they were during the school day. So ensuring that committees, even if they can't schedule all their meetings after school hours, have every other meeting after school hours so that students can
Uh,
attend.
and
Um,
working people, right?
yep,
Students and working people, right?
yep. So I mean, students and teachers were in the same boat on so many of these things. The students, you know, yeah, that's I feel like students and teachers have more in common than most folks in terms of, what we're fighting for and what we need to be able to be heard. Um, yeah, and so along those lines as well would be um, changing the monthly board meeting to be 2 days so that it could take place after school and working hours both days. Uh, yeah, so I hope that answers that question.
It does. Thank you so very much. And we want to encourage you to continue to organize young people,
Thank
older
you.
ones too, but definitely
Yes,
young people, and keep your organization list too. Okay.
yes, ma'am.
All right. And so I'm glad that you brought it out that you have some of these relationships, and we have some hello Atlanta style relationships with many people on the board also. But when it comes down to the real business, either they don't answer questions or they're closed off and they are mired into whatever world they are into. Um, what are some of the ways we could improve our communication with parents and students who may not have uh, fast internet access or may not be using technology, and those who are? In other words, when we want the rain to hit everybody, we want everybody to be taught with on a regular basis and heard. How could we make that possible? How could you make it possible on the board? What would you bring to the board to try to see communication improved?
Yeah, there are a number of things. I think really just meeting folks where they're at. I think that a big program I would love to see expanded is parent liaisons, because I think that when we, support parents and you know, other caregivers to be even more involved and take an even bigger role in the school community, I think that that is beneficial for everyone. And I think that oftentimes families are more inclined to, be involved when they're being asked by, a peer. Uh, I would love to see things like just canvassing houses of students. I know that there are some like community organizations that currently do that to talk with parents. I would love to see the district work with them because it seems like we're all, um, you know, fighting for the same thing. So I'd love to see the district work with some of the great parent advocacy organizations that we have and educator advocacy organizations to um, do, door to door canvassing, calling, just checking in with families, even when there's no reason to think that, that particular family may have an issue that they need to have addressed. I think just having that proactive outreach will create a much greater level of trust. And then when families do need something specifically addressed, they'll feel comfortable reaching out. I also think,
Talk about the curriculum. What would you like to see change in the schools in terms of the offerings in the curriculum?
totally.
What would you like to see added?
Every high schooler needs to take financial literacy course, in my opinion. I would love to see a full year course added at the high school level, one semester financial literacy, one semester modern life skills. I also think expanding work-based learning opportunities, vocational training. I had the opportunity to intern with the state representative when I was a junior and senior. And it was wonderful because I was interning with the state representative at the same time that I was taking AP government and politics. And so I would literally head to the Capitol right after sitting in a classroom and learning about, the legislative process. And so finding, more innovative ways for students to get plugged into the business community here, the political community here at the capital of Georgia. There's so many different opportunities. And so ensuring that students are becoming immersed in, these different opportunities in the city as they're in school, I think would be amazing. So yeah, those are the areas where I'm really passionate. Also ensuring that curriculum is culturally responsive, and ensuring that we are, you know, leveraging and focusing on, especially in literature and history and social studies, focusing on materials written and authored by people of color, by women, by LGBTQI plus folks, ensuring that students are uh, seeing perspectives that resonate with them, that they can relate to, and that are diverse. Um, and yeah,
All right. How many people are running in your race?
there are four others.
Okay. So more than likely you'll have a runoff.
Yes, ma'am. So more than likely we'll have a runoff. I was the first to announce after I had talked with Candace Wood Jackson and discovered that she was not running again. I'd been, considering this for a while. I first thought of the idea of running for the board because I wanted to see a student seat added to the board. Unfortunately, I talked to some state representatives, and there is some state law preventing anybody under 18 from serving in any elected office in Georgia. And so I realized that the next best thing was a recent graduate. And so that's when I decided to run. And we led in fundraising in the first period, which was amazing. We secured a number of, big endorsements from folks, state representatives, Park Cannon, David Dreyer, Dejan DaCosta, Vice Chair of the DeKalb Board of Education, Commissioner Ted Terry, and others. So yeah, it's been a whirlwind, but I'm excited for the next 2 months. And yeah, there's some other, strong candidates in my race and the other races, but um, for the mere fact that we have a 9-member board of education and not one APS graduate, um, not to mention we don't, of course, don't have anybody who's been a student in the last decade, and so I believe that the perspective I bring is just greatly needed on the board.
Okay. So you have some relationships with people at the General Assembly.
Yes,
Um,
ma'am.
have you met the lobbyists for Atlanta Public Schools?
Yes, Erica Long.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good.
I interned directly with Erica. Or actually I interned with the board, with Pierre Gaither and Keith, um, doing policy research and consulting, and then I reported to Erica because I was working on a a report on work that districts around the country have done on equity. But
So tell us about that. Does the lobbyist report to the board or to the superintendent? And how those legislative priorities decided?
yeah, to be honest, I'm not totally sure. Because the work that I was doing was really focused on, it was focused on implementing the equity policy from the board. And so from my understanding, Erica doesn't report to the board, but is, working very closely with the board, because she reviews policies, as well as, looks at how to implement those policies, and then, of course, has the legislative agenda, um, to take to the state. I'm not totally sure how that works, beyond that. One thing that I am excited about, if I'm lucky enough to serve on the board, is to be involved in that work and be an advocate, not only on the board for my constituents, but be an advocate at the state on behalf of the entire district. Because we know, especially talking about curriculum, the the nonsense that they've tried to do around critical race theory, even though they know that none of our K through 12 schools are actually teaching critical race theory, since that's a university level concept. But yeah, I look forward to that work as well, because I think that it's just as important, because state law is uh, so influential when it comes to what the board can do.
Okay. Atlanta has been known as a Democratic Party stronghold.
Yes, ma'am.
And of course, we let folks know, if you're fortunate enough to be able to afford to get your hands on vote builders, we really know how you vote anyway. So what can we do to improve relationships between parties, political parties? That's one part of that question. And the other is, how does our I would say penchant or acclamation toward the Democratic Party help or hinder us at the State House?
Mm, yeah, that is a great question. I think it's gonna be very different in a few years. I I think it's going to be very dependent on the gubernatorial election, because if if we have Governor Stacey Abrams, or whoever it would be as a Democrat, but probably Stacey, we wouldn't have a Democratic assembly yet, but there would not be a worry of horrible things getting through the legislature.
Like the Opportunity School District that she helped Governor Deal pass after we defeated it.
There's that.
Improve it. We don't want to get on Stacey.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
No.
the question is, we got 2 more minutes, is that how do we communicate? Let's say the Republicans are in control.
Mhm.
How does the Democrat Atlanta get what it needs from a Republican controlled legislature, or vice versa?
That's
How
the
do we
thing.
work together beyond the personalities and the people who are giving us our cues in the city, from
Yeah.
pulpits all the way down to organizations?
I
So
think
that
really,
we still benefit.
yeah. I mean, I think, to be honest, we gotta not play like sort of hardball politics, because the Republicans in the Gold Dome, for the most part, they don't really care about Atlanta. They care about their likely rural district, and the voters there. And so, they're playing, sort of,
Hardball.
yeah, hardball, and also just like
Yeah.
trying to create, culture wars and just this nonsense. And I feel like to an extent, we'll be able to sort of, I feel like we just have to tell them to stay out of our business and potentially, make concessions in a couple small areas. But I think, Republicans, they like to talk so much about local control, when they try to.
We've seen them do the opposite. That's true. So it's some demons on both sides.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Thank you
And
so much. We got 1 minute, and you want to say the thing closing to us, because we appreciate you being in this race.
thank you. Just in closing, I thank you so much for, considering me for this endorsement. I look forward to being in touch, no matter the outcome. And I would love to, I would especially love to, see any materials you all have in terms of, I don't know if you have a policy agenda or, any sort of organizational platform, but I would love to, see what some of your priorities are, and to ensure that, they're being addressed in my platform.
One is that we want a board of education that caters to some of the things we've been talking about for years. For world-class education, we know we got to have a formalized process for teachers. World-class systems have that. And we got lawyers on that board and all, but because of political will, they don't have to do that. So there's a reason why the good old South is behind in so many areas. So that's one of our priorities. Another is that we would like to have a kinder, gentler board. But and we are definitely for community schools over at the state level. We're going to be back in touch with you, young man.
Okay.
And we do appreciate you. And your hair is absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
I was just looking at you doing that. I wish I had that kind of. That's beautiful. It's real nice and thick. Okay. Tell your parents here in the city of Atlanta.
Yes.
Tell them hello for us. Tell them thank you for raising such a fine son.
Will do. And you all might just real quickly appreciate so I like to brag on my grandmother, because unfortunately she has dementia and is unable to brag on herself, but she helped found the U.S. Department of Education as a member of the Jimmy Carter administration.
Oh.
And her whole career was in public education. And so she's one of my main inspirations. And she was
what is
also
her name?
Connie Stewart.
Okay. Connie Stewart. Thank you for that information.
You're welcome.
All right. We'll run into you soon.
Goodbye. Thank you.
All right. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.